Chapter 1. The seeds of discontent in the early years of the 21st century AD. The vast Roman Empire sprawled across Europe, North Africa, and parts of the Middle East, its influence felt in every corner of the known world. Yet, beneath the veneer of prosperity and order lay simmering discontent, particularly in the province of Thrace. This region, situated at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, was inhabited by a fierce and proud people known for their warrior culture and deep-rooted traditions. The Thracians had a long history of resisting foreign domination, having been subjugated by various empires over the centuries, including the Macedonians and the Persians. The arrival of the Romans brought new challenges and impositions, as taxes increased and Roman officials enforced laws that undermined local customs. As Roman legions patrolled their lands, many Thracians felt their way of life threatened. Tensions escalated further when the Roman governor of Thrace, a man known for his harsh methods, instituted a series of reforms aimed at consolidating Roman control. These reforms, perceived as oppressive, alienated many tribal leaders and their followers. As local grievances mounted, the seeds of rebellion began to take root. Chapter 2. The call to arms. In the spring of 21 AD, a charismatic leader named Bato emerged from the ranks of the Thracian tribes. Bato, a chieftain of the Bessi tribe, possessed a magnetic personality that galvanized the disparate tribes of Thrace. His message resonated with the Thracians. Unity against the Roman oppressor was the only path to freedom. He spoke passionately of their shared history and culture, invoking the spirit of their ancestors who had fought valiantly against foreign invaders. Bato's charisma and ability to rally the tribes did not go unnoticed. One by one, tribes began to pledge their allegiance to his cause, and soon, a coalition of Thracian tribes formed. The call to arms echoed throughout the region, as warriors prepared to defend their land and their way of life. As the sun set on the horizon, a sense of hope and determination filled the air, and the Thracians sharpened their weapons, ready for the fight ahead. Chapter 3. The outbreak of rebellion. The rebellion officially ignited in May 21 AD, when Bato's forces launched a surprise attack on a Roman outpost near the town of Philippopolis. The Roman garrison, caught off guard, was overwhelmed by the sheer ferocity and numbers of the Thracian warriors. The initial victory fueled the fervor of the rebellion, and soon, word spread that the Thracians had struck a significant blow against their oppressors. Following the success at Philippopolis, Bato and his forces advanced, capturing Roman supply depots and fortifications across Thrace. The rebellion gained momentum, drawing in new recruits from neighboring tribes who saw the potential for victory. With each triumph, the Thracians grew bolder, and the Roman grip on the province weakened. As reports of the rebellion reached Rome, the Senate was thrown into turmoil. Emperor Tiberius, who had previously focused on consolidating power in the provinces, understood the gravity of the situation. The rebellion threatened not only Roman authority in Thrace but also the stability of the empire itself. In response, he dispatched legions to quell the uprising and restore order. Chapter 4. Roman response. The Roman response was swift and brutal. Tiberius appointed General Gnaeus Domitius Corbulo, a seasoned commander known for his military acumen, to lead the campaign against the Thracians. Corbulo understood the complexities of warfare in the rugged terrain of Thrace and quickly set about strategizing how to regain control. As Corbulo assembled his forces, the soldiers were imbued with a sense of purpose. They were not only fighting to quell a rebellion but to restore the honor of Rome. The Roman legions, renowned for their discipline and training, marched towards Thrace, ready to engage the rebellious tribes. Bato, aware of the approaching Roman forces, strategized with his tribal leaders. The Thracians, skilled in guerrilla warfare, understood the advantages of their home terrain. They devised plans to launch ambushes and skirmishes, intending to weaken the Roman forces before a full-scale confrontation. Chapter 5. The Clash of Arms. The first major engagement between the Roman legions and the Thracian rebels occurred in the summer of 21 AD near the village of Sestos. As the sun rose on the day of battle, the air crackled with tension. The Thracians, painted with the symbols of their tribes, gathered in anticipation, their spirits high from earlier victories. Corbulo, too, prepared his men for what would be a defining moment. The clash erupted with a ferocity that reverberated through the valley. The Thracians, utilizing their knowledge of the land, fought with a savage intensity. They moved swiftly, launching surprise attacks and then retreating into the woods, luring the Romans into traps. However, the disciplined formations of the Roman legions held firm, employing their advanced tactics to counter the Thracian onslaught. As the battle raged, the ground was soaked with the blood of both Romans and Thracians. Corbulo, witnessing the resilience of the Thracians, decided to adapt his tactics. He ordered his legions to consolidate their formations and employ a more defensive approach, leveraging their training to withstand the initial waves of attacks. As the day wore on, the tide of battle began to shift. The Romans, exhibiting unparalleled discipline, pressed forward, utilizing their superior weaponry and armor. Corbulo's strategy started to pay off, and the Thracian lines began to falter. The once unified rebel forces faced disarray, struggling to maintain cohesion in the face of the relentless Roman advance. Chapter 6. The turning point. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the battlefield, Bato realized that a decisive moment was at hand. He called for a regrouping of his forces, determined to rally his men for one last stand. The warriors, though weary, were inspired by their leader's unwavering resolve. Bato led a desperate charge against the Roman lines, aiming to break through and reach Corbulo himself. The Thracians fought valiantly, their spirits ignited by the knowledge that their freedom hung in the balance. In the midst of the chaos, Bato fought with a ferocity that was unmatched, determined to demonstrate his commitment to the cause. However, the Romans, now well coordinated and resolute, met the Thracian assault with an ironclad defense. The sounds of clashing steel and battle cries echoed through the valley, creating a cacophony of desperation and courage. As the two sides clashed, the ferocity of the conflict reached its peak. Just when it seemed the Thracians might prevail, a crucial misstep in their formation led to confusion. Roman cavalry, flanking the Thracian forces, charged into the fray, creating chaos among the rebel lines. The disciplined nature of the Roman legions began to take its toll, as the once proud Thracian warriors found themselves overwhelmed by the disciplined advance of their adversaries. Chapter 7. The aftermath of battle. By the end of the day, the battlefield lay strewn with the fallen from both sides. The clash at Sestos marked a turning point in the Thracian rebellion. The Roman forces, though suffering casualties, emerged victorious, forcing the Thracians to retreat. Bato and his surviving warriors fled into the nearby hills, nursing their wounds and regrouping. In the aftermath of the battle, Corbulo understood that while they had won a significant engagement, the rebellion was far from over. He recognized that the spirit of the Thracian tribes would not be easily extinguished. Rather than simply pursuing Bato and his forces, he opted for a strategy of pacification, seeking to win over the hearts and minds of the Thracian people. Corbulo ordered his troops to establish a temporary camp and began sending emissaries to local tribal leaders, offering leniency in exchange for their loyalty to Rome. His approach was twofold. He sought to diminish Bato's influence while simultaneously reassuring the people of Thrace that Roman rule could be benevolent. Chapter 8. The tides of rebellion. Bato, realizing the urgency of the situation, retreated into the rugged mountain terrain of Thrace, where the Roman legions struggled to pursue. He convened a council of tribal leaders, urging them not to abandon the fight. The Thracians were known for their resilience, and Bato emphasized that their struggle was not merely against Rome but for the preservation of their culture and identity. Despite the overwhelming force of the Romans, Bato inspired his fellow warriors with tales of their ancestors' victories and the importance of their land. He urged them to continue resisting Roman authority, invoking the deep-rooted sense of pride that characterized Thracian culture. "If we do not stand now, we will be lost forever," he declared, igniting a fire within their hearts. Meanwhile, Corbulo's diplomatic overtures began to bear fruit. Some tribal leaders, seeing the tide of battle turn against Bato, chose to align with the Romans, providing intelligence about the rebel movements. This further isolated Bato and his loyalists, who were increasingly outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Chapter 9. The final confrontation. In the winter of 21 AD, with the landscape blanketed in snow, Bato's forces faced a dire situation. Supplies were dwindling, and morale among his troops began to wane. In an effort to reassert his influence and revive the rebellion, Bato decided to launch one final campaign against the Roman legions. Corbulo, having anticipated such a move, prepared his forces for the impending clash. He sought to exploit the harsh winter conditions to his advantage, fortifying his camps and positioning his troops strategically. On the eve of battle, he delivered a stirring speech to his men, emphasizing their duty to uphold the honor of Rome and the stability of the empire. As dawn broke, the Thracian warriors launched their final assault, charging down the mountainside with desperation and fury. The ensuing battle was fierce, as the snow-covered ground turned red with the blood of the fallen. Despite their determination, the Thracians found themselves outmatched by the Roman legions, who stood resolute against the onslaught. As the battle raged, Botto fought valiantly at the front lines, leading his men with unwavering bravery. Yet, despite their ferocity, the organized tactics of the Romans began to take their toll. One by one, the Thracian ranks crumbled under the relentless assault, and as the day wore on, it became evident that victory was slipping from their grasp. Chapter 10. The end of the rebellion. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the final moments of the battle unfolded. Botto, witnessing the destruction of his forces, realized that their fight was in vain. In a desperate attempt to rally his men one last time, he called for a charge against the Roman general. However, his voice was drowned out by the clamor of battle, and many of his warriors began to flee. Corbulo, seizing the opportunity, ordered a concentrated assault on Botto's position. The combined might of the Roman legions crushed the remaining resistance, and Botto found himself surrounded. In a final act of defiance, he fought fiercely, determined to die a warrior's death rather than surrender to the Roman oppressors. Ultimately, Botto fell, his lifeblood staining the snow as the last echoes of battle faded into silence. With his death, the rebellion lost its heart and soul, and the remnants of the Thracian forces scattered into the hills, abandoning their cause.